Hollywood, 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 Hollywood. Let me welcome you to Hollywood, 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 Hollywood. From so many. Oh, yeah. Hollywood.
Hello and welcome to another Film 5.0 podcast, Roll Camera. And today we have an extremely special guest. His name is Jamie Barber. And Jamie has done, I don't know, how many years you've been in the business, Jamie? About 40?
Over 40. Yeah. At least, 50 years.
50 years. He started at Panavision and got out to be an AC, and he's worked on some amazing things. He's also gotten to the level of being a director and director of photography. So we're going to talk to him today about some of the things he's worked on. And the question is, what is expected of a director and or director of photography at that level, and at what does the network expect from you? So one of the movies or TV shows that you did work on was Covert Affairs. And I wondered if you could tell us, based on that movie or that TV show, some of the expectations that were put on you or that you knew were going to be part of, your working environment with the studio.
Well, on that one, on Covert Affairs, I was very lucky. It was, we did it. I did the pilot as well. It was, Doug Lyman's production company, and Doug, I had done, the OC with Doug, and we had participated in a couple other pilots. So I knew his company well. It was also, NBC Universal, and USA Network. So I knew them well because those were the shows that we had, the production company and the studio that I'd already had a relationship with. So going in, on the pilot, you have the pilot director. I think it was Tim Matheson. And we had, you have your producers. You have the guys who wrote the pilot, and my producer at that time was Sean Ryerson, who I had already been 3 projects with. And we all sit down and we go over what the look of the show is, what the feel of the show is. We do a breakdown of what the color palette's going to be, on that show, it was all action adventure, CIA agents and things like that. So we knew there would be a lot of running and gunning, and we wanted to separate the two parts of the show where you had inside the CIA and then being spies running around in the world. So all that's discussed. And there's a big, because we were in Canada, our production company was in Canada, but the studio's in LA. So you have Zoom calls with the people that are overseeing you, the studio execs that are overseeing you. And luckily, the DP has very little. Our discussion's very little. What you don't want to be is the makeup, hair, and wardrobe people, because their discussions are extensive. Like you just go, oh my God, I don't want to be you. And then you start, everything gets broken down, and then you put in what your camera package is going to be, and you hire your operators and all of that. And then you start, and the studio stays away from you unless you make a mistake. They'll also, depending on the sort of the show that they're looking at, they'll let you know how bright they want it, how dark they want it, things like that. It's usually better to have it slightly brighter so that you can, in post-production, you can take it down to whatever level you want. sort of middle of the road to begin with. Later in the show, so once it was picked up, since I was now going to be the DP, I knew what the look of the show was going to be. And when they bring in the directors, you have a discussion with them, you have a meeting with them, and they've usually already viewed episodes that have taken place, and you let them, they're not hired to change the show, the look of the show, unless the executive producers come in and say, we're going to make a move, and these guys have a different view of what the show will look like. But mainly you are as the DP on episodic, you're sort of the steward of the show, of the look. And you, if there's a problem, then you get on the phone and you call an executive producer and have them talk to the director about. You never, ever go against the director, because you don't want to set up that relationship. What you do is you get somebody on the phone and have them come down to the set and let them play the bad guy, because you have to continue that relationship. You have to be the good guy.
It's good to know.
That's one of the most important parts of it.
Are there situations where, I mean, you as the DP, I know that I've talked to other DPs where when your work gets back to the studio, they want to make changes in terms of lighting and darkening, and they want to change the look of it. Does that ever become an issue with what you're doing? So,
well, no, because you have to. They're the ultimate boss. So if they come in and say, "Look, everything's looking a little too dark," then you go, "Okay, I'll brighten it up for you a little bit." But usually that's sort of. You don't get that too often. You don't, because they'll take care of it in post. When you get into the final timings and things like that, they'll go in and they'll have a conversation. They'll have a conversation. You go in and you give your notes. Like my color timer was in Los Angeles. I was in Toronto. So I would get sent it. I would look at it. I would give them notes. Very rarely did I sit through a session. Not like if you're in LA or you're in the same place that the color timer is, then you get to sit in the session. But you can make all those changes. I mean, nowadays, there's really almost nothing you can do. There's nothing that you can't fix. So if the studio has some complaint, then okay. And even the executive producers, and even I at times will go, ugh, I don't want that. So with digital, you can take it literally, strip out the metadata and start completely over again. Just start telling it what it is. Cause it's made the information that the camera puts down, can be stripped. And you can start all over. You can tell it the ASA the camera needs to be. You can tell it the color space it needs to be. You can do all of that. It just takes a little time and it requires a little bit of money. So we fixed. I did a show called Allegiance for ABC, and we again, it was CIA agents, and we had a couple of things where they were like, oh, actually, it wasn't Allegiance, it was Treadstone. Treadstone was the one that we did. That was a division of the CIA that Jason Bourne was, and we shot it in Budapest. And we did that. That one, there was very, very specific needs that it was discussed, that all the light had to look like it was practical and things like that. And there were a few times where I, got a little edgy and went really dark, and the studio called and said it's a little dark. And we could always lift it up, but
would they ever do that on their own?
Well, yeah, you don't have final control.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
They do.
So
they have.
So
they can
in post,
in the final color. Yeah, they in the final color, they can go in and shift stuff if they want. Usually they didn't. A producer sat with you in Final Color. Very rarely did, when I was in LA, very rarely did the studio come in and Final Color it.
I am curious about something because I know on TV shows they alternate directors a lot, but is that kind of the same protocol for DPs as well? Because I feel like you'd want to keep at least one or two people consistent throughout the show to maintain the look, but I could be off on that. Do they alternate you guys?
Yeah, it depends
all,
on, yeah. Some shows do, some shows don't. It depends on the schedule that you're on and how complicated the show is. If the show's very complicated, then they'll take two of you. And usually one of you will become the dominant DP. Usually it's decided ahead of time. And so you'll be the one that they'll have to match your work. And we'll openly have discussions about it. Like, this is what I'm doing. You need to match me. And usually it's like, if you were the pilot DP, then the second DP has to do what you do, which is, and usually everybody's pretty good about it. There are some times that I've had to come down to the set when I was in that situation and, hand slap and say, dude, what the hell are you doing? It's not my look at all. But that's about
when
it.
When you were in Budapest, I mean, I did a film in Budapest. Were you required to use, how many of your own people were you able to bring?
Nobody.
Oh, that's what I was wondering.
Budapest was pretty good. My gaffer was great. My camera operators came from Italy. In Budapest, I was brought in to replace DP. I didn't start the project. So, but the operators were good. They were Italian. I think my focus pullers were all from Hungary. My equipment, I did switch out some of the equipment, but the equipment mainly came from Munich. So that was pretty good. Mm-hmm. But it was all fine. That was fun. And that one was pretty, like I said, we needed to be in Budapest because we were recreating Europe in the 1970s and 80s. And they've got some old street lights that are just stunning. The wires go across and the street lights are in the middle of the street, and they are that color, that beautiful yellow, warm color that just told you were not in the United States. It was fantastic.
Yeah. It's still one of my favorite cities. I've been twice. I love it. So.
Yeah, it was fun. But no. We shot in some crazy places. There was an old brewery that the first two levels of the brewery were still okay, but below that, the third and fourth level down had become flooded. Oh, it was so much fun. Everything was wet. The light just reflected off of everything. It was so good.
Sounds brutal. Yeah.
Oh, well, it was for everybody else, but it was beautiful to photograph because it was just stunning.
Yeah. Yeah. Our crew was mostly Hungarian. Our DP was from France, but everybody else was pretty much from Hungary. They brought me because I was the only one that knew Panavision.
Right. So, fun.
And then
it was good.
Yeah, it was good.
Their crew's really good. I mean, because it was, there were big movies that were going through there at the same time that were using the Hungarian crew. It's just, one of the things that I found because of Covert Affairs, our first season, we shot everything in Canada. So we recreated whatever country we were going to in Canada. So we started the second season and we were scouting and we were in a square and they said, this is going to be Argentina. And I said, nope, it can't be Argentina. Yeah. And they go, why? I said, last season, this was Switzerland. I said,
what? It was what?
Switzerland. Oh, okay. I said, so you can't start repeating because people are going to see the show and know that we're faking it.
Yeah.
So they came up with they came up with a process. Our producers, Sean Ryerson, came up with this process where we would shoot for, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks in Toronto, and then we would shut down. And then because we were in Toronto, we would fly to Europe, and we would shoot like a week in Europe, and then we'd come back and shoot all the interiors of the CIA. Then we'd fly to Paris, we'd fly to London, or I did 4 trips to Morocco. And it was great. And we would leave everyone behind. We had a makeup artist that was French. She was based out of Paris. Our wardrobe, I think, was based out of Paris. But myself, director, and we pick up the rest of our crew wherever we were. And I started to finally understand that crew is crew anywhere in the world. A grip is a grip. If a guy wants to be a grip, he's a grip. They are, I hate to be, like that, but that person is exactly the same everywhere in the world. Camera assistant is a camera assistant. They are the same people. They are made up the same way. They talk the same way. They work the same way. Gaffers are gaffers. And it's fun. You have to get them, to drink the Kool-Aid, because you're only going to be there for a little bit of time. And we very specifically made it so that we didn't have, we didn't bring a lot of lighting. We didn't have a lot of lighting. Cameras now, you couldn't have done it back in the film days, but in the new digital days, you can run around like a crazy person and do all the stuff that you can do.
Absolutely.
So you would go to these different countries just to establish a look for each of the episodes being in those places, just to get some footage?
We would shoot all of the exteriors, everything that the spies had that were supposed to take place in that country would be in that country.
Well, that's what I mean, to establish the look for that country. So
right.
For each of the episodes, right? Well,
we would be in Paris, we'd shoot, the spies would be, the Eiffel Tower would be in the background, or the Arc de Triomphe, or we'd be someplace. I felt so dirty, like in Rome, you just I kidnapped a guy right in front of the ruins. And you just go, God, I feel dirty. This is like a travel log.
Hey, Jamie, I don't mean to interrupt, but that made me think of your story in Tiananmen Square. Was it when you guys were trying to steal shots in China?
No, we were doing that's a whole set of stories, has to do with Craftsman tools. We did all these Craftsman tools commercials, and every time we did a Craftsman tool commercial, they couldn't show it because of some disaster that took place. Like we shot in Alaska on the Alaska pipeline, because the pipeline was built with Craftsman tools. And when they finally got the commercial ready to run, the Exxon Valdez ran aground, so you couldn't run it because it associated Craftsman tools with. And the main shot of Tiananmen Square was this. Air China bought 747s, but they had to have Craftsman tools. So the main shot of the commercial was this little guy riding his bicycle with a Craftsman tool case in the basket across Tiananmen Square. Oh. And, the tanks rolled and the guy got killed, and you couldn't run that commercial before it could air. So needless to say, those people lost the Craftsman tool commercial. Lost the Craftsman tool contract.
Yeah, no, the one I was speaking of was the one where you used your iPhones.
That was in Hong Kong.
Oh, was that in Hong Kong? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Hong Kong, the vernacular that takes you up to the top of the mountain in Hong Kong, there's a big tourist area at the top, and you get to see all of the, you see both sides you see the bay and the ocean. And we went to shoot there. And we were told, we'd scattered it all. And then the day before we got ready to shoot that sequence, they said, you can't take cameras because we don't want the tourists to be interfered with. And so you can't look like a camera crew. And I went,
what's the point?
So now what do we do? So we called, We called NBC. I called the technology, the people at NBC who take care of all of that. There's people that look at what the finishing specs are and all of that, all the technology people. So I called the technology people, and they said, all right, what have you got? What have they said? And I said, well, we can't have cameras on shoulders and something like that. We have to look like we're tourists. And they said, okay. They said, what level iPhone do you have? And I think back in then it was like I had an iPhone 7, and they go, that's good enough. You can use an iPhone 7. And so they make mic packs that take SD cards. And so you just lavalier the actors, put the pack in their back pocket with an SD card. And so we shot the whole sequence with 2 iPhones and remote and lav mics that you couldn't see. And we went up the vernacular, we went out into the stuff, did all of it, and it looked great. You couldn't really tell.
Yes, I was just going to say it. I bet it looked good.
Yeah, you couldn't really tell when it went. I mean, because it, eventually goes through color timing and all of that stuff, and they do all the changes. But you couldn't really, network television. You're not, and this was before it got to now 4K TVs and stuff like that.
Yeah. You saying all that, I'm curious because they know your backstory better than I do. But based upon the way that you first got into the industry and the accessibility of digital technology now, do you think that you could get into network television or, the film industry as a whole doing it the same way that you did it back when you first started? Or is that pathway like completely gone now that, digital technology has really changed everything?
No, that pathway is still here. My pathway was very, very, very specific. I was lucky enough. I did feature films first and commercials and lots. And then my dream had been to be a camera operator. I had always wanted to be a camera operator. I thought that was the best job in all the world because it's, we used to say it's just pan, tilt, and invoice. You don't have to deal with the politics of everything going on. You don't get the phone calls from the lab at 2:00 in the morning that your film broke in the developer and you're screwed, or there were scratches, or somebody flashed the film. You don't get the calls from the studio. In the feature film world, it's a little tighter. You don't get the call from the studio, like, what the hell are you doing? Things like that. So camera operator is the best. Literally, you're working with the actors, you work with the director, the DP, you're creative, and you don't have all of that political stuff. Plus nowadays you don't have the pressure, because in the old days, no one looked at what you did until the next day. So if there was a problem, everyone looked at you. Same with being a focus puller. Now, because the video stuff is the monitors are so good, what you see is what you get. The problem is now everyone in Video Village has an opinion. It's like, oh dear God. Before you'd say, listen, this is film. It's not what that, even with video assist. You go, that's video assist. This is not what it looks like. It's film. It's you're looking at an electromechanical thing. I'm looking at a chemical reaction. So it's not going to look like what you say. But to get into the, no, if you can find your way into a TV show as a camera operator, then eventually how it worked for me is, Caleb told me that I wanted to be his camera operator. And he said I had to go do television for 2 years. So I found a TV show to go operate on with a DP that I had worked with. And then I did it. And then the second season he wanted to direct. So I DP'd, and then he left the next season and the studio said, you did such a great job. You're now a DP. And I only got to operate for a little bit of time, and I only got to do like 2 features as an operator. It was just heartbreaking. But the money's different. So, but it's, you just have to go, if you're going to want to be in television, you just have to go find a job in television. And television does have a tendency to move you up linearly. It's much easier to move up in television. I also think that TV is a much harder medium than feature film because you have to do it at a much quicker pace. You don't have all the time because when you go in, you literally scout. You don't have like the months of scouting and prep and all of that. When you're shooting a TV show, if you're the only DP, then you're sending your guys. You're sending your gaffer and your key grip to go look at it because I'm still shooting the show. Sometimes I may move my operator up and let him shoot part of the day. But a lot of times you arrive at the location and it's your first time actually physically being there. And that's the most fun because now you've got to figure it out and you've got a clock ticking because you're going to have to do 8 pages that day. So that's where the fun and adventure was in shooting. But then if you go out to the feature world, all of a sudden now you've got all this time and you're expected to make it look a little better, even though. So there was a period of time that TV guys were not as respected as feature guys. But once you're in the TV world, you go, God, I got to do all that same work you guys have 8 months to do, and I've got to do it. I've got to do it in 8 days. So
like now, yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of operating, I have to say that before we leave, that Mr. Jamie Barber was one of the DPs that gave me my first opportunity to operate on the OC, and he even let me shoot some second unit occasionally. It was very nice. It was quite a lesson, and
you have to
close to my heart. So
you gotta help. You gotta play with the people that you played with before. Now the funny part is being a director in episodic television is a bit of a different world.
Yes.
Because you're brought in, you're interviewed or whatever, and you're hired, and you're brought in, given the script, you break it all down, you have discussions with the creators of the show and the producers, and then you go through, you meet with all the department heads, and you have some discussion with the studio, because again, the department heads and you are going to at some point get on a Zoom call with the studio and go over what the wardrobe's going to be, all of that. Very rarely does the DP and the director in episodic have to talk to the studio, because that's pretty much, unless there's something special going on. But then right before you shoot, you have this drawn out huge meeting where you go through with the executive producers and the head writer, whoever wrote that episode, and the executive producers, which are usually the creators of the show. And you break down the script. You go through everything, literally scene by scene, line by line. You go through the motivation of the actors, what she would do. Everything is discussed because you're not rogue. You've got some restrictions to you. And then once you get through that, then you make whatever changes you have to make, and then you start the show.
So, Jamie, would that be considered a concept meeting?
No, concept meeting is something that happens way before. You don't.
Okay, so it's like a production meeting then.
Even production meeting is no. This is a oh God,
it's like logistics.
I forget what we called it. No, it's just with literally producers and you. It's a very, very, very drawn out meeting where you go through exactly what the expectations are of you, and exactly what they think the actors should be saying and should be doing. Because once you make it to the set, a producer is not allowed to talk directly to an actor. They can, everyday act talking, but they can't direct them. They can't change. They can't discuss their dialogue. They can't discuss their acting. They have to come to you, and then you have to go discuss it. So all of that is done ahead of time in that meeting, and it's a long meeting. It is not a fun adventure. Production meetings, production meetings are different. Production meetings, you go in and the first AD breaks it all down, and you go through it, and every department you discuss what is needed from every department and when it's needed, and things like that. Usually there's no acting involved. The read through with the actors is another meeting, and that's where we all sit down together and they'll read through it. But again, not a lot of acting, just running through the words. And if they've got problems or they need to have discussions, this is the point they usually bring it up with the writer, like, I wouldn't say that, or things like that. So that when I started directing episodic, I was very lucky because they, well, it's very funny. It's a story where I was on Covert Affairs. I was given the information that I was not going to get a raise for the next season. And I said, okay. And they said, you're the top of what NBC is willing to pay. And I said, all right, well, you guys have a great next season. I'll go find something else to do. And they said, and my producer, Sean Ryerson, said, hold on. Let me go talk to the studio. So he came back and he goes, do you want to direct? And I go, no, I don't want to direct. He goes, well, you directed a couple of sequences. We had directors who had issues and you got them through it. Usually it had to do with a director coming in and doing like who was a sort of a talking head director who would have to do like an action adventure or a fight sequence or a stunt sequence. And they would like panic. And I said, no, fine. I've done so many of these all through my career. We'll get you through it. You'll be fine. And the studio would hear that. And then so they were like, all right, we're going to write you an episode. The studio wants you to direct. That's the way that we're going to get you a raise. Finally, I said, okay. And then the writers were very kind. They wrote me an episode that was all action adventure, and the actors were all very kind. And they, they all said, you don't have to direct me, like seriously direct me, because we'll be killing people and doing stuff like that. But, because eventually NBC sent me to acting class and story class. And so eventually I learned how to really direct. But it was great. It was fun. But one thing, the best thing that was ever told to me in directing was by a director named Stephen Kay, who was also our producing director. He said, your job as a director is to answer questions, because this is a big ship. And those people, your department heads, and anybody who asks you a direction is not going to do anything until you tell them to, till you answer their question. He goes, and this ship isn't going to move until you say, yeah, no. If the transportation guy comes up and he goes, what car do you want? You better tell him, I need a red Mustang. He goes, now you're the director. So he's going to start looking for red Mustangs. If you don't tell him, you say, wait, I'm thinking about it. Let me think about it. He's not going to look at anything. And so he's going to be, so you say, I need a red Mustang. Now, doesn't mean that in 2 days you can't come back and say, you know what? I changed my mind. I don't need a red Mustang. I need a blue Chevelle. But at least he's moving. And the same thing with wardrobe, and the same thing with camera, and the same thing. They're all going to want to do stuff. And so until you tell them, they're not going to do anything. And so you got to get that ship moving. And then everyone's going to want a piece of you. They all want their questions answered. So answer. And all of a sudden, I always laughed because the directors always had drivers. And I go, they're just sitting in the chair directing. You're exhausted, mentally exhausted. At the end of the day, you get into a car and you go, oh my God, I don't want to talk to anybody ever. And, so that was actually the biggest, and so that I think was one of the most important things, especially in television, because television, again, you only have 7 or 8 days to prep. And so they better be.
That's what I was going to.
They better be
ask
moving.
you about that. When you're asked to do an episode, to do a TV show, when a director comes in, that was one of my questions. How much time do you get to prep? And that, well, I mean, you kind of answered it.
Yeah, no, you have however many shooting days you have that many days of prep.
Okay. I didn't know it.
Yeah, so if it's an 8-day episode, then you have 8 days of prep, maybe 7 days.
But because you have such limited time frame on a TV show, what's the average number of takes that you guys do? Like, I mean, if you have to fly through it.
It depends. It depends on the actors you have and what's going on. You have, I mean, there are times that you just may be one and done, or two and done if the actors are doing it well. There's other times where you just are not, it's not working, and you're going to be at this a while, and you pull the first AD aside and you say, all right, you better figure out where to stick the rest of this stuff, because we're not going to make it today. Every show has what you call the telephone booth that just followed you around. And so it was that one scene that just that could be written anywhere, acted anywhere. And it followed you around because you had to push it off someday. So, usually like the last day of the show, or if you're an alternating DP, then you can say, get him. We'll give him, we'll get him a small crew. He can have his director and they can go shoot him. So there's things like that has to happen, but you can usually, make it through pretty much. I mean, there have been times where you, as the director, there's only so many of the day players you're allowed to hire. Like, you go through casting, and then you have to go through the you go down into the auditions, part of your prep. And then there are some people that's on tape, and the executive producers go, this guy. And so when you get there, it's your first time really meeting this guy, like jeweler number 2 or, something like that. And you just go, oh my God, this guy sucks. He's overacting.
So part of your prep, part of that week that you're prepping is casting too.
Oh yeah. At the very beginning. Yeah. Oh, no, yeah. You're going to auditions. Usually it's on tape, and you look at it, in your hotel room or whatever, and you look at it and you narrow it down to a couple of options, and then you go and see them. And the main thing you want to do in auditioning, especially in television, is not so much whether or not they're going to be great at what they do acting wise. It's going to be whether or not they can take direction. So you go in and you listen to them, and they'll present you what they feel that their take on the character is, or that, and you listen to them, and then you make a change. It doesn't have to be the change that you're going to make on the day, and they may have it nailed with what you thought the character should be, but you need to make a change, and then you need to see if they can make the change, because that's what's important. Is that they can take direction, they can internalize it and use it. If they can't, then you're stuck with a one-trick pony, and you're screwed down the line. So that's the main.
But I'm sorry to interrupt you, but so now what is your option at that point? Can you make changes with the casting at that point?
Oh yeah, you've got two or three options. You'll go with the best option of the. But there's times where when you show up and the executive producers have hired them because they didn't think they were important enough, and you are just horrible. So I had to do it more than once. The reason that I said jeweler number 2 is I had this jeweler we were in a jewelry store, and I had my 3 main actors, 1, 2, and 3 on the call sheet, and then this jewelry guy. And the information he was passing on was very important. And he was overacting. It was just, there was not, and I would go in and make changes and changes and changes and changes. And then eventually I took my 3 actors aside and I said, I'm really sorry. Luckily I've covered you guys. And, so I'm now going to just wear him down. I'm going to shoot him until he becomes exhausted, and then he just quits. And he quits acting. And they said, okay. And so we were there for hours until he finally completely relented and just gave up.
It's like breaking a horse.
Oh no,
Yeah.
it is
Well-
is exactly like breaking a horse. But then I've also we were in Italy, and they brought in an actor. This was on Allegiance, and they brought in an actor. We were in a bakery in Rome. They brought in an actor, and the actor again was just like, oh my God, I wasn't getting anything from him. And our actors came in, and one of them was like drugged, and he had a gun, and the guy was all, but there was the real baker from the bakery was there, and he was this little old Italian, and he didn't speak any English, and he was talking to the first AD in Italian. And I said, what's he saying? He goes, that guy's doing it all. He said, he's doing it all wrong. And he goes, let me show you how it should be done in Italian. And he did it. And I go, well, that's the guy. That's how I want it done. So George Nolfi was our executive producer. He did Inception, directed Inception, wrote and directed Inception. And he came up to me and he goes, what are you going to do? I said, well, we're going to use that guy. I said, but that actor, I don't want to hurt his feelings. So we shot one take with him, and then thanked him very much and let him go. And then we brought in the real guy.
Yeah. Thank you. See ya.
Yeah. But he felt like he would contribute. I'm sure. Yeah. Luckily, I don't think the show showed in Rome, so we didn't have to worry. But, and I did that again in Medellin, Colombia. Medellin, we had a guy that was supposed to be on the back of a motorcycle shooting a submachine gun at our actors driving up the street. And it wasn't working at all. And my C camera operator, who was brilliant, was the head of the comuna. He was head of the gang that was controlling the comuna that we were shooting in. And the production company, the Colombian production company, had come up to me and said, Gato, he's got some, he's our guy that's protecting us, but he's got a couple of YouTube videos. Would you look at them? I said, sure. So I went and looked at him, and I go, hey, it's okay. He can shoot okay. So I had a meeting with Gato, and I said, look, would you be my third camera operator? And so we got him an assistant, and we gave him a Canon 5D, and actually he got shots in the show. I'd put long lens stuff and do like that. But Gato came up to me and he goes, that guy on the back of the motorcycle, it's not working, is he? I go, no, he's not. He goes, you see Luis over there? I go, yeah. He goes, he just got out of jail for doing that, for real.
Doesn't everybody in Colombia have just gotten out of jail?
And I go, really? He goes, yeah. I said, is he willing to do it? He goes, yeah, he's willing to do it. So we put him on the back of the motorcycle, and we rehearsed it once, and it was perfect. And then we go, okay, you're the guy. And we made him the bad guy number 2 or whatever. And it was great. And I've never felt so protected in a country in my life. One of my actors and my C camera operator were both members. One was the head of the gang, and the other one was the gunman for the gang. So it was brilliant.
In Colombia, that would be important to feel comfortable.
Oh yeah, we were doing a big walk and talk, and we got back to one, and there was a person had been stabbed and was bleeding at the number 1 spot. And I looked at Gato, and Gato says, "No, it won't happen again. That wasn't part of us."
Welcome to Colombia.
Wow.
Oh no, it was great. And I went back there again. We went back again and had a great time. That was the one where they tried to kidnap us.
Oh, that's right. That's right. The whole kidnapping thing, and then swimming in the lake, right?
Well, I was swimming in we got out of, that's how we exited our last day of shooting. That's how we exited the location was, one of the actors and myself, there was a river and from where we were staying, and we swam out. But we had to have security guards with us because they had tried to kidnap me and the director earlier in the show.
I did a film in Paraguay, and the only thing they told us was at nighttime, just don't walk around by yourself at night. kidnapping and stuff. But other than that, it felt pretty comfortable.
We
Everybody was okay.
one day NBC was it Piper, myself, and Stephen K. We dumped our did the whole, got rid of our security. NBC had us bodyguard security with us all the time. So one day we wanted to go do something, and so we had to dump our security. Pretend we went out the back, the loading dock at the hotel and stuff like that. It was pretty
Piper
fun.
Paraguay, right? Piper, right?
Piper Perabo, yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, I love her. She's great. We worked with her once. She's great.
Well, that was one of the great things about working in foreign land was we got the actors to agree that they would, have their makeup and hair done on the run, and they may have to change wardrobes in bathrooms at cafes and things like that. But the funny part about shooting in foreign lands is we thought, like, we shot in Sweden, and we thought, oh, the Swedes will be great. They'll be loose. We'll be able to shoot all this stuff. And they were really like the most down the line. I had to get in my van. I couldn't go to someone else's van to have a discussion in between locations. No, you were ready. You have to go to van 2. That's your van. And I'm like, okay, you guys are not fun. And then I got to Germany. And I thought Germany would be very strict and loose.
You would think, yeah.
They were the craziest. They drank the Kool-Aid so fast. I needed to do a dolly shot, and they stole a wheelchair out of a hospital. There's an old NSA listening station that's just gorgeous, but we weren't permitted to be there, so they cut the wire, the chain link fence, and we snuck in with Peter Gallagher and Piper and shot this whole sequence in this gorgeous, overlooking all of Berlin. And we weren't allowed, they were the best. They drank the Kool-Aid. And my first AD was my dolly grip. It was just, he was, oh yeah, let's go do that. Okay, let's go do that. They were wonderful. I loved it. So
that's an interesting combination, the AD and the dolly grip, but that makes some sense actually. So,
oh no, it's perfect. He can, he's right next to the camera the whole time.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was the AD. I just needed somebody we didn't have a dolly grip.
Yeah.
I needed someone to push me in to push me in the wheelchair. Cause I was whenever we would travel, I would be the DP and operator. On Allegiance, I was the DP, operator, and director. And it was just the best. I did have my Steadicam guy from New York who had the same visual style that I did. And it was so funny because he would always complain because a lot of the foreign stuff was handheld, and you'd be sitting there shooting the sequence. And then you'd go, if I move over here, the shot will be so much better. And he would be shooting something else, and he'd go, if I move over here, the shot would be so much better. And because I'm sort of the bigger, bulkier guy, he says, you could hear me coming. He'd just wait for me to run right into him. We would be fighting for the same shot. So it was always fun.
It's too funny. That's good stuff.
I told you, it's like, half of what we do is a really good story,
Yeah.
I mean,
you have to have good stories, because some of the times when you're going through it, it's pretty painful. It's not fun at that time until later. You're either in the plane or you're at the pub or you're going, oh my God, that was crazy. And then you get, all of a sudden it comes out that it's an okay story.
Yeah, I remember so many times in really bad situations where when Linda and I would be, I would always go to that. I said, well, someday this is going to be a great story.
Yeah.
And it is. So
I'm just happy that carries over even into my feature film is super low budget. I mean, it's not even the lunch budget on Star Wars. It's super, super small, but shooting it was, I mean, it was, we shot nothing but night shoots, and it was 28 nights. And
Wow.
it felt like it was just 28 nights of pure hell. It was just, you were just playing guessing games about, what was going to happen. Was this going to break? Was somebody going to get injured? Who was going to get sick next? And it spiraled out of control. And, when you're living in it, as we were shooting it felt like this thing is never going to see the light of day, because we're barely standing upright. Like, we can't even, how are we going to figure this out? And it wasn't even until over a year and a half later, that I could start to reminisce and go, okay, that was kind of funny. That was, we just had, you worked with, Linda and I worked with Tony. Well, Linda and Steve worked with Tony on the feature film we did together. And Tony was my DP. And I remember we were setting up for a shot, and we were in the kitchen, and we were kind of in a time crunch, and everyone's drop dead tired. And apparently Tony had a huge fear of mice, and there was a field mouse that ran across his toes. And our code word, if there was, like an accident or something, is somebody would just shout injury, injury, injury. And so he just starts shouting injury kitchen, injury kitchen, injury kitchen. And I turn around, and he's standing on the kitchen counter holding the camera like this, because he's terrified of the mouse. And so, yeah, we had, just random stuff like that. Our lead actress falling out of the upstairs window during a take. Stuff like that.
He's not the guy that Linda and I would have taken to Vietnam with us.
No.
No.
You know what? And that is a thing. I mean, Jamie and Steve will tell you that when you're going to do some things, you got to look at that person and go, yeah, are they going to make it? Are they okay?
Yeah.
No, we had, you never know. No, we when we shot, we were shooting in Malaysia. We were deep in the jungle. We were there for months, and we were shooting in it's one of the most stupid. We were shooting in these rice fields. It was the worst use of money I'd ever seen. So they machine plant the rice nowadays, but since this took place in the 1800s, they yanked out all the machine planted rice and hired Malays to hand plant the rice. Well, the problem is you hired these people to hand plant rice, and they are very, very proud of how they hand plant rice. So it looked better and cleaner than the machine planted rice. Like you look down the rows and go, this looks like it's machine planted. Why did you guys do that? It was messier the other way.
Looks the same.
But we shot weeks in the, what's that?
That was King and I, right?
And in the King with Yun Fat and Jodie Foster.
And in the King, right?
But we shot in the rice paddies, and you would have to strip at lunch to check for leeches, and then you'd have to strip it at wrap to check for leeches, and you couldn't do it. There's parts of you can't see, so you have to have a leech buddy.
Oh yeah, we've got some Vietnam stories about leeches.
So it was
blood red underwear. So.
Oh yeah, so we would, you would do that, and you've got to make sure that the people with you are like, okay, there's gonna be leeches, and it was pretty. We had encephalitis outbreak and all sorts of things that you got to make sure that people are okay going through all that.
That's true. When we did Jungle Book, Steve got called by what's his name, Ian
Fox.
And Ian Fox to do Jungle Book, and Steve goes, "Well, I want to bring my assistant Linda," and he goes, "I don't know," and he's like, "No, trust me, it's gonna be okay." I ended up outworking the B camera team by just getting shit into, really bad locations, hot and sweaty. And, you got to have that backup. You got to know that you have your person with you, especially as a first AC, right? You got to have that second that's willing to do all that.
Well, absolutely. And the same, I mean, with your DP, you've got to have, you have to have the first AC who runs the department, because you have to know that the equipment's going to be there when you want it and need it. On Anna and the King, because we took over.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, we took over. They'd been shooting for like a week, and they had some issues.
I remember that.
Yeah. That ended my career with Jan, because I had to leave The Haunting to fly to Malaysia, and The Haunting was about to leave for London. So, and I took Paul Demart with me, and so we sort of screwed that movie and moved on to the other. But it was Caleb. Yeah, our loader didn't speak English. He only spoke Thai. No, he only spoke Thai, because originally the movie started in Thailand. And so he didn't speak English, spoke very little Malay. And we would, all of a sudden, Paul comes up and goes, "We're going to run out of 500 ASA film in like 2 days." And I go, "Okay, well, let's call and get some in." He goes, "You can't. I just talked to production and they can't get it in." And I said, "All right, let's call Kodak." So I called Kodak in LA, and because the way things worked in Malaysia, the film had to be looked at, had to be felt and looked at. And part of it, every 1,000 feet a strip had to be cut and developed, because they were worried about pornography coming into the country, because it's Muslim. So eventually it was worked out that they would ship all the film to Singapore, because Singapore could directly import to Malaysia. And then I got the film in time. Caleb never knew that he was having a problem. But it's just like, you get into those situations where you never know. You can't. And then our camera truck, the best was our camera truck driver was also Thai, didn't speak Malay, and all the rest of the transportation was Malay. So there'd be times, and he would look, he'd get a map or whatever, and then we'd have to be on location. And there was times I'd be in the van driving, and my camera truck would be going the other way. I go, "Where's he going?" And so we'd have to send somebody to find my camera truck.
I had the same problem in India. I mean, it was just my loader put the exposed in a raw stock can and messed all that up, and I had to get in the truck, and I had the same problem. My camera truck were 5 guys. That was my camera truck.
No carts, people. So.
No carts. Yeah, we could talk about that situation. We ran out of 1,000 feet of film. It had to be in India. They only shoot 500s. So,
right. Area 3s.
Right.
That's where they came from.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually.
So
Area 2Cs is what they used to have. Yeah.
Yep. So all this film from the USA had to go through Munich, and then Munich to India. That's how it had to go. Or from London to Munich or something like that.
I think London to Munich.
I had to go up to the DP and go, "We only have one case of 1,000 feet left." And he looked at me, and I was like, I had told him at the beginning of the movie, it was an Albert Brooks film. I said, Albert loves to just lay off film. Right? He told me what the breakup was of the 2 stocks. And I said, "We're going to need more." And he goes, No, we're going to be okay. And Steve and I had worked on the Muse previously. And there was one day we went through 30,000 feet in the morning. So,
he just rolls and rolls. He just rolls and rolls and rolls.
So we tried to put the 500 footers in 1,000 footer, and then, so that Albert wouldn't see, because he notices everything. And he goes, "Why are you guys cutting it off so soon?" And I was like, fuck. So the DP had to tell him what the situation was. And he wasn't happy. And he goes, "Can't we get more in?" And they're like, "No, Albert, that'll take a month and we'll be done by then." So, there's so many logistic things, and there's also language, and there's also in India, the first AD hits the slate. So I had to work out, no, I have to do the American version and teach the second how to slate. It's
Well,
nuts.
in Hungary, the grips handle the slate.
Not with us, not anymore.
Oh, they did with us. And
Yeah.
when I arrived in Hungary, a woman came up to me and introduced herself as Ildiko, and I said, "Well, who are you?" And she said, "Well, I'm your translator." And I go, "Do I need a translator?" She goes, "Yeah, your loader doesn't speak English." so I wound up making her my assistant for the whole film. She was right next to me the whole time. So
No, it was funny because every country that I would go to, I would try to learn the stops and stuff in their language and the lenses in their language. And there were a couple of times where my crew, my first AC would look at me and go, "Are you sure?" I go, "What?" He goes, "I don't think it's that stop." I said, "What did I just say?" And he goes, "That." I said, "Well, that's not it, dude." And so I go, "Thank God." He goes, "No, I keep listening to you." He goes, "I'm making sure you're all right." Because there was like 16. No, we're interior. He's like, "Yep, you just asked for a 16." Okay. Yeah, I love it's crazy. What else do you want to know, especially when it comes to either directing or DPing? And
well, my questions were about the prep, and you answered those questions for directors, and especially on episodic because you get so little time. But
you do, and
you answered that.
Yeah, you're running the whole time. It's like
you pretty much answered all the questions that I had written down as you were telling these stories. The only question that I had at the very end here, and it's kind of more of an open-ended question, but I had written down, what in your opinion is the biggest misconception that people have about working in the film industry based upon your experience? What would you say people from an outside perspective, they see it one way, but you experience it another?
that they think when it first started out, they think it's the outsiders think it's a pretty glamorous, business. Oh my God, you work in film, how wonderful that is. But they don't understand that when they're looking at a sequence that it's raining and it's a downpour, you're standing in the rain. Or if it's night and it's cold and it's snowing, you're standing in the snow. And it's really a down, dirty, hard business. It's 12 hours minimum. And that doesn't include food. And they don't understand that film loaders, their turnaround is so little. They get so little sleep. By the time they get done, get home, get to bed in like 6 hours, they got to get up and be back because they only have 8 hours off. It's that it's not, the only glamorous part is probably the actors and the rest of the crew and maybe the director, the rest of the crew and producers. The rest of the crew is just sucking it up because it's like when you say, "Okay, we're going to Hawaii for a month." And they're all like, "Oh my God, that's great. You're going to Hawaii for a month." No, you try slogging that equipment through the jungles of Hawaii and down into the beach and stuff like that and through the sand. And you're getting beat. You're getting eaten by stuff. I'm not on vacation at all. Then you look over at makeup and hair is in lounge chairs and they're watching, sitting out in the sun and you go, "Yeah, okay." But that's my thing. That's a misconception. Yes, Steve. I'm sorry.
That's great.
I interrupted you. I'm sorry. One of my favorite moments on a film set was Terms of Endearment. We were on a long running dolly shot, and we were in front of like 500 students at the University of Nebraska. They were watching us, and we went off the end of the track and crashed and all wound up in the dirt. And Dusty Blathow was the assistant. He got up and looked at all the students and he goes, "It's not all blondes and blowjobs."
Exactly.
That was my favorite one.
One of my first movies, a horror movie I was doing, we were working on, I was a camera assistant, was called Evil Speaks. And at one point during the film, this kid gets shoved, gets run over, sort of manhandled and shoved into a pigsty. And we were shooting the POV of the getting shoved into the pigsty. So it was just like that. It was on a like doorway dolly on, some track, but the track purposely ended. So me and the camera operator on the doorway dolly just pushed. We went to the end of the track and then into the pigsty with the pig.
Into the pigs.
And that camera stops and you don't.
Yep.
Yeah. We put one in the ocean. We put one in the ocean in Hawaii once. And the camera and the dolly.
We didn't. The camera operator, he did. So
the dolly and the camera into the ocean. So
in the ocean.
That was tragic.
One of my favorite. We were in. We were shooting Hunt for Red October, and Jan de Bont was in a ocean-going Zodiac with Cal Roberts, and Jan was operating, and we were. I'll never forget it. Jan called for a lens. It was something like a 75 the 75 anamorphic. And Jan goes, 75 Cal, 75 Cal. And Cal went and he has the 75 in his hand and he's got the camera and he's about to put it in the mount. When Jan turns, he goes, Cal, where's the Cal? And he hits Cal's hand and the 75 goes, boop. And Cal, without missing a beat, goes, will a 50 work, Jan?
There you go. Yeah, that's Linda's favorite movie, by the way.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
What were you on, second unit or B camera, or what were you doing?
Yeah, I was second unit.
Yeah.
I had the fun stuff. I was on the USS Gary and the Houston. And we were doing all the good stuff. I had to actually dress in military uniform.
Really?
Yeah, because there's a shot when they're shooting the Gary. Yeah, no, I had to be in full. Somewhere I've got a picture of me in full battle dress. That's with cool. Helmet, and it was as if we were shooting a gun.
Wow!
Didn't
you guys have a situation where you had a ship cut a cable or something on that?
No, the Houston sunk a
tugboat.
The tugboat, where the Houston had gotten the tug. They thought that they had disconnected from all the tugboats, and the Houston dove, and the line, the one tugboat wasn't disconnected from the Houston. But by the time they did get the line cut, they cut the line. They cut the line, but you have to get a certain distance away, or you get sucked down with the.
Sucked down, yeah.
You get sucked down because Houston displaces a lot of water. So the Houston submerged and it just, water followed in behind the Houston and it got sucked down as well.
Yeah, and wow. filmmaking is not dangerous at all.
Well, I always ended up, at least almost on every show, I would end up in the hospital. At least once. At least once, all the time. Yeah, because I remember I'm the one who always did the fun stuff. I got a message in a bottle. We were one of the biggest storms off the coast of Maine. We wanted to shoot, because the main character, his wife dies in the middle of a big storm. So there's this little island off the coast that you can get to when it's low tide, but it's high tide you can't. And so we had to literally, to get the equipment on there, we would wait for the tidal surge, and the ocean-going Zodiacs would go up onto the rocks, and then we would have to unload the equipment and then push it down. And I was carrying a tripod and slipped on some wet Visqueen and head into the rocks. And I made it to lunch, and then the medic was looking at me, and he goes, "Your eyes are all dilated. Are you okay?" I don't know. And so they rushed me to the hospital. They went and they did the MRI or whatever. And the doctor came in and he goes, He goes, is this story true? I go, yeah. What's the story? He goes, were you out on this island today? And I said, yeah. And he goes, the only way to get on, there's no beach. I said, no, we had, and I explained. And he goes, well, the MRI is true then. I go, what's that? He goes, you got a fucking small brain to be out there on that island today.
Confirmation.
Yeah.
MRI confirmation.
And I go, all right, thank you very much, Doc. I said, he goes, other than that, you're fine. You got a small concussion. You have to take a day off of work. And I go, okay, well, that ain't going to work. So yeah.
It happened to me once. I only wound up in the hospital once in Vietnam with Linda, where I took a fall. But the hospital in Da Nang was pretty good. They were pretty
I bet.
up to snuff.
They've been through
Pretty
there.
up to snuff.
Well, it was called the American Hospital, so or the International Hospital. So
did you have to pay American rates?
No, yeah, well, I did, and they. But I was there for 3 days, and the whole bill, including the emergency room, was $1,200. So nothing.
Well, no, we were in. Well, you know the story of Titanic, where we got drugged in Nova Scotia. So no, I got hospital after that. The next day, when we were back shooting the last stuff with Gloria, before we left back for the United States, I started having reactions again. And so they thought I was having a heart attack, and they ran me to the hospital in Halifax. And I was in there unlucky for me, when the doctor finally caught up and said, you're not having a heart attack, you're just a poison victim. He goes,
you only poisoned, and you have a small brain.
Well, yeah, but because over 20 of us had gotten poisoned through the seafood chowder, which was eventually PCP, including Cameron and Kayla, everybody. So the doctor comes in and he goes, so I got good news and bad news. Good news is, you didn't have a heart attack. You're a poison victim. Bad news is you got checked into cardiac intensive care on a Friday night in Canada. And I go, yeah. He goes, I can't get you out till Monday morning, and you got to stress test your way out. I go, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, they're going to look for a room, but I doubt if you'll find one for, a night at least. So yeah, in cardiac intensive care, there's no TV, no radio, no nothing. And so the production company, they're leaving. They're flying back to California before they head to Mexico. So I get left behind, and I have a Game Boy and a bunch of magazines and a book is what they sent for me. They got me, and I'm playing the Game Boy. I'll never forget it. I'm playing the Game Boy, and I'm playing Tetris, and I go, and I hate to swear, but I go, fuck. And the nurse comes in. She goes, we're going to take that game away. It's a little too stressful for a heart patient. I said, I'm not a heart patient. I'm like, look at my chart. I'm a poison victim.
I'm poisoned.
So eventually on Monday morning, they got me out. But I never ever saw the bill for it. We'd never, Canadian healthcare.
Yeah, it's Canadian. Yeah, they're good.
It was great. And they were great.
Pays for that too.
Yeah, I don't think the production paid for anything because when Billy Paxton and I were talking about it later, it was like we were all laughing because when we were in the little hospital in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, and we had first gotten there, because we had all started not feeling well and things were going wrong, they would put you in a little emergency room, a little area where the doctor would see you by yourself. And sometimes they put you in there because the doctor would be busy and you couldn't stay there for very long. And you'd go back out to what the crew was. And we, later, because it was PCP, and one of the reasons that PCP is no longer used as a human anesthetic is it causes massive paranoia. But we were first diagnosed with paralytic shellfish poisoning, which is terminal to, a big percentage of people would die. So Billy and I were laughing because we were told we were going to die. And we were on a drug that causes massive paranoia.
Yeah.
So that was not a fun. That was not a fun experience until months later when you go, okay, well, that was pretty fun.
We're paranoid enough, and we think we're gonna die.
Yeah, now we're told you. Now you're told you may die. It's like, oh my God, thank you very much.
Not today. Yeah.
So good.
Well, hey kids, let's do this again. Jamie, you have still 8 million stories and so much more great information to tell us. I hope that answers a lot of questions for people, and I think it was very informative.
Yeah, and entertaining. And
more entertaining.
But that's what we like. We're here for entertainment as well, everyone. And this is what it's usually like at a lunch table on a movie set, is everyone telling stories and having a good laugh. So you just witnessed lunch on a movie set.
Yes.
So I want to thank Jamie for his stories and his knowledge, and hopefully you'll come back and do this again.
Yep. Happy to.
Yeah.
Because besides being able to tell stories, I actually I do have information I can pass on. I'm happy to do it.
He has a lot of it. Yes.
You have a lot of information. Yeah.
Yes. And we love it. Okay, so thank you, Jamie. Thanks, Steve, Jeremy, everybody for being here. We hope that you check us out on YouTube and social media, and please tell everybody about Film 5.0 podcast. My name is Linda Gacsko, and thank you. And please subscribe and hit the like button and be around for our next Film 5.0 podcast on Roll Camera. Thank you.